Hey guys, DJ here at Top Tech Cards and Games. Today I'm going to do a deck profile on the Musketeer deck for Forcible. I made a deck tech for this a long time ago, and I don't know, I guess it got mixed up in our different memory cards and stuff and never got uploaded, so I made an updated one towards the end of like the MPR kind of format before we get Vingolf and Millennia of Ages and stuff. This is one of my favorite decks to play. It's a really fun deck, definitely not the most competitive, but it is awesome, and I mean, like, who doesn't want to play Puss in Boots and D'Artagnan? D'Artagnan is obviously the man. So this is a Wind, Water, and Darkness deck. It doesn't play very similar to other decks in those colors. Like, I'm sure most of you are tired of just seeing green decks all the time, but don't worry, we use green to do cool stuff in this deck instead of to not let our opponent have fun. This deck can play a couple different roles, kind of like as a tempo slash like aggro control deck with, like, not really control, but like an aggro deck with some counterspell backup and a lot of like draw card elements. Or you can play as a combo deck. I like going off as the combo deck much more. It's kind of how I built my deck to function. Going over the stones, we have 4 Magic Stone of Black Silence, the Wind Darkness Stone, 4 Magic Stone of Deep Wood, the Wind Water Stone, and 2 basic Magic Stone of Wind. Our deck needs a lot of mana to combo off, so it's very, very, very important to not miss on Gretel. Plus, Feathsing isn't the most exciting card. It's possibly correct to replace one of the basic Windstones with a Feathsing, but I was just looking for consistency in my combo and getting the mana to combo, so I chose to just go with 10 Windstones. Puss in Boots is obviously very key for the deck since it is our roller. What he does is make our Musketeer Resonators cost 1 less to play, which makes them very cheap and efficient, and his flip is 9 mana, but it costs 3 less if you control Athos, then 3 less again if you control Porthos, and 3 less again if you control what's his name? Aramis. Flipped over, D'Artagnan is 1,800. He's got Pierce and target attack, and while he's on the board, all of your Musketeers gain plus 400, which is pretty big for our kill turn, actually, when we go off the combo way, and when you just play as, you know, like an aggro deck, just having a plus 400 Anthem for all of your Musketeer creatures is also incredible. So realistically, we're looking to flip Puss in Boots for free, though, and kill our opponent that turn. That's the dream, anyway. Doesn't always happen, but, you know, that's what we want. So first, our basic creatures, we have 4 Elf and 4 Gretel. Like I said, it's really important to expand your mana in this deck. You just need a lot of will to do anything, basically. So we have 8 of those cards. They're not exciting cards, but whatever. Then we have 7 Cats. Cats are important in this deck because they both draw cards. I wouldn't mind having 8, to be honest, but having to choose to only play 7 with my deck constraints, I went with 4 Familiar of Holy Wind and 3 Cheshire. I chose 4 Familiar because it's castable no matter what we hit turn 1, castable no matter what we hit off our Gretels, and castable off Aramis mana when we're in our kill turn to just keep cycling, as well as being a much better card against aggro since it actually kills their threats instead of just chomping them. Though Cheshire does dig deeper, but without a reliable shuffle mechanic in our deck, it normally doesn't really dig deeper since you just draw the cards you put back again, unless you can find the cards you need to combo off. Then we have our Musketeers. We have 4 Athos, 4 Aramis, and 3 Porthos. I only play 3 Porthos because this is kind of just the worst card ever. Like, not literally, but it dies to everything. It doesn't get immediate value when played. Like, both Athos and Aramis do something when they come into play, whether, like, literally if you just play Aramis for 2 mana, it at least gives you 1 back. So you could play like a Familiar or an Elf that turn as well. So you can kind of just expand your board much easier. Athos obviously gets you the addition. Porthos is just a 7/4. You have to play it so you can flip Puss in Boots cheaper. When you flip into D'Artagnan, this card is insane. If you played it ahead of time, a 2-mana 11/8 after you flip is just one of the best cards you can have. But this card is very, very average when you're setting up. You don't really want to put it into play because it's just going to die to, like I said, almost literally anything. And I mean, it is good when you're in the beatdown plan just to play them and apply pressure sometimes, but overall, it's just the most underwhelming card. You could play 4. It would maybe help make your deck a little more consistent or make your flip on Puss in Boots a little more consistent, but I don't think it's necessary. And before I would play a 4th copy, I would play a 1 of Silver Bullets, which is a card I've tested in here a lot, and it's okay. I'm not sure if it's better than some of the cards I'm playing or not. I'll talk about this a lot where it could be in. Then Pumpkin Witch is our last Resonator. We have 2 of them. It's a key part of our combo kill. And So I guess I should explain how we kind of combo off. Like I said, you want to expand your mana a lot using Elf and Gretel and stuff early in the game. Then when we get to the mid game, when we have maybe like an Athos or a Porthos in play already, probably an Athos most likely, and maybe even just an Aramis that we cast earlier, we want to use that mana to keep playing more Musketeers and playing Aramises, then chaining together the draw spells we have, until eventually we can play a Pumpkin Witch, flip over Puss and Boots for free, and just swing in with Flying Swiftness Musketeers that we've put into play this turn that are all +4/+4, as well as any Gretels we have left in play. So Pumpkin Witch is key because it lets us attack over most of our opponent's boards. There's not really grindy flying creatures people play that just sit and play. So it's basically impossible for them to block you once you drop Pumpkin Witch and attack in. For the kind of control-ish elements of our deck, we have 3 Zeeks and 3 Absolute Cake Zone that we can use to play the tempo game with, counter our opponent's creatures, counter their spells. Cake Zone cycles, helping us find combo pieces, but mostly it protects our combo. And Zeeks has the added bonus of not only protecting our creatures and countering theirs, but it also creates a lot of extra damage with the +200/+200 ability. If we have like 3 or 4 creatures in play, it can do an extra 800 damage. Even more if you have more creatures. And that can really be the difference between killing your opponent in one turn or them surviving with a little bit and mounting a comeback. So Zeeks is really, really useful in this deck, just as an overrun effect to add damage to the board. Then we get into the draw card section of our spells. We have 3 Witch's Dagger. These are important because they're searchable with Athos. Then 2 Voice of the False God, and 1 Whispers from the Abyss. I only play 1 Whisper because resolving this card and not winning really makes you a dog against any aggro deck, and it's very, very high risk, high reward. When this card works the way you want it to, you'll just win the game for free. You obviously just have to be careful. If you're playing it and trying to go off, just keep yourself at high enough life where they can't thunder you out of the game from that point. It's also just a card you would side out every time against aggro. But it's not very feasible to chain together multiples of these in a turn if you miss on the first one, like if you play one and draw 4 or 5 cards. Whereas with Voice and Witch's Daggers, if you have the blue will, you can keep playing them and keep drawing cards. It's possible that this isn't the correct combination of draw cards, but I like this the most so far. But that's the deck list. As far as playing it goes, early in the game, like I said, your goal for the early game and when mulliganing should be to find these cards first and foremost. You want Familiar, Elf, Gretel, just like basically any green deck. But you need to have a decent amount of mana early in the game. I'd be tempted to say that any card that isn't these guys in Aramis, you should probably mulligan. Aramis is the most important card to actually killing your opponent. Because once you have the mana to keep playing Musketeers, Aramis starts actually generating mana, or will rather, and you can just keep playing threats at that point, and with your package of draw cards, you should be able to kind of filter through your deck, find your Pumpkin Witch, build your board up, and just swing for lethal. But it's important to find these cards to A, accelerate to that point with the 2 ramp guys, and B, to survive as well as filter through your deck as early as possible with Familiar. So I'd be pretty tempted to mulligan any card that's not those ones. After that point in the game, you do want to stick an Athos in play to give yourself a bit of a easier time going off. Plus, Athos is going to find you a Witch's Dagger to help you draw cards when you want to go off. But once he's in play, if you can stick a Porthos against a non-Thunder deck, that's great. If your opponent is likely to be playing Thunder, it's not unheard of to hold it in your hand until you try to kill them. If you're on kind of the aggro plan, you certainly can just put them in play though. They're going to draw removal because 7 power is a good bit for 2 mana. So your opponent is going to be very, very enticed to use a Thunder on it, which is a fine trade for them, but in the long run it can hurt you more. Granted, they're going to use that Thunder eventually anyway on something. In general, Cheshire Cat is very good in this deck, but it's not like a snap keep. It doesn't get you out of the early game as well as Familiar, Holy Wind, or the ramp creatures. So it's fine to mulligan them, especially since you're not guaranteed to have a blue will anytime early in the game. That really sums up the deck, though. It's a really, really fun deck to play. It does a lot of the classic green things as far as ramping and playing some counter magic goes. But your kill condition is a lot different from a deck like Grim or like Green Grim, which isn't much of a thing anymore, or Abdul or Scheherazade. You have a much stronger kind of mid-game focused combo deck, and you can play the role of just a creature deck just fine, just drawing card with a lot of extra card draw, which is awesome. So you don't have as many counter spells, but you do have a million ways to draw extra cards. And the last thing that I'll talk about are some additional cards that I've thought about playing. Like there's the fourth cat, second voice, or whisper rather, fourth cake zone. Something I touched on is a 1 of Silver Bullet maybe being good. I don't know what to cut for it at this point because I'm very happy with all the cards that I'm playing, but once you're going off, you'll reach a point where casting Aramis will actually generate mana, and at that point, being able to Silver Bullet for it and maybe even make mana off of it being really expensive to play is insane, but it also just helps you make sure you have enough Musketeers to fully develop your board and kill your opponent. I wouldn't play this as more than a 1 of because it's kind of not bad, but it doesn't really advance your board. I mean, it doesn't advance your board state at all to play it earlier in the game, and it really telegraphs what you're trying to do. When you just, like, if you turn 2 bricked and just go, all right, Silver Bullet for Aramis, go ahead. Your opponent's going to know something is up. But I do think it's a fine 1 of. And then the last cards are 1 Crucifix, just to make your deck a little more interactive. This probably should be in just so you can play an Athos, search out Crucifix, and put it on it so you're almost guaranteed to keep a Musketeer in play for when you start going off. I went with a much higher risk, higher reward build, and I'm just searching out Witch's Daggers with my Athoses right now. Then the last card is a 1 of Necronomicon. This card got a lot worse when our graveyard quit triggering enter effects, so we can't play Aramis from our graveyard and stuff to get maximum value. But you can use your counter spells and your draw cards from the graveyard and just put creatures into play from your graveyard. Which, if you have a decent board state, you use your Black Will to play Necro late in the game, put your the rest of your Musketeers from your graveyard back into play, and then you can cast some Aramises from your hand or something, and make a ton of green will anyway, so it's not that detrimental that you've used some of your will already. And it just gives you a second shot to combo off and kill your opponent. But it would be a 1 of, and it's something that you want to see at the absolute end of the game after your opponent has stopped you from going off once. It is a brick early, so that's what keeps me from including it. And if I did, I might be tempted to change some of my cake zones to Law of Silences so I can lock my opponent out of the game. And Law is actually a little bit better when you go with the aggro plan. If I was more focused on playing it that way, I would put more Laws in because you can, set up your board, play like a Porthos and an Aramis or whatever, and then Law your opponent. And if you just flip Puss and Boots the next turn, that's a lot of damage your opponent hasn't been able to contest. And they're a turn behind it developing their board or dealing with your threats, which really, really puts them in a bad position. So it's possible you want to focus more on that line of play. And, gosh, what's that card called? I just used this name. Silence, Law of Silence, is great in the combo version, is like if your game plan is combo as well, since you can draw, Law of Silence, untap, kill them. But I chose to go with Cake Zone just because it lets me filter through my deck a little bit more and gives me a little bit more control over the game instead of being that dedicated the turn I play it. Since one of the things that is kind of a turn off to this deck is that you can fizzle when you're drawing these cards and going off, like trying to kill your opponent. And when you don't get there and they're left with 400 or 500 life, like it's not unheard of for decks to be like playing, especially after game 1, to be playing like Cinderella and Awakening and stuff, where they can just kill your entire board that you spent all of your turn setting up and left them with enough life where they can try to stabilize. And I think Cake Zone is just better for those situations since you're never really positive you're going to kill your opponent. You look at your hand and go, well, I can draw 7 or 8 cards this turn. I have a lot of damage. I'm going to go for it. And you want to not just lose the game when you miss. The last card I would really consider playing would be like the 4th copy of Zeke's or the 4th copy of Witch's Dagger. So this is my Musketeer deck. It's definitely not a tier 1 competitive deck, but it's a deck that I have a lot of fun playing. It's a deck you could take to like a local tournament and you certainly could do okay with it. You're not going to make it to Worlds playing this deck most likely if you're headed off to one of the regional qualifiers. But you will have a lot of fun. It's a great deck to play, especially with people who are kind of newer to the game and don't really deserve to immediately get hit with the Abdul Law of Silence lock like their first 5 or 6 games or something. Like, people need to see other decks. I know it's hard to play anything but the tier 1 decks because they're just so much better. But like it's hard to be enticed to get into games when you feel like there's only 2 or 3 decks you can play. And that's why I like having decks like this build, especially to play with newer players. So, hope you guys like this deck. Let me know down in the comments what you think. If you think of any ways you could improve it, how you think maybe my ideas are off base a little bit. I'd be more than happy to talk about it. I think it's a lot of fun, so it's a deck that I'll probably play for a little bit now. I'll try to get some gameplay videos for you guys. Hopefully I can do some sweet combos and kill my opponents in one turn, so that'd be fun to watch. But other than that, let me know what kind of Forcible videos you'd be interested in seeing. If there's any, fun casual decks like this one you would like to see me make and post on the channel instead of competitive decks right now. I'm in a bit of a lull until Millennia of Ages and Vingolf come out, since I didn't get to go to any of the regionals, and I've made deck techs and gameplay with a lot of the tier 1 decks already. So I'm kind of focusing on just playing fun decks and having fun until the end of the month. So if there's anything casual you guys would really like to see, any decks that are like favorite pet decks of yours that you want some help with or something, maybe get my input on them, let me know down below. Be more than happy to help out for the next couple weeks while we wait for the new cards to come out. And when we do, we'll have a lot of sweet new content with the new cards. So thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you like and subscribe for tons of more content, and have a good one.